Artists produce work from ideas that they seem to pull out of their pockets. What may not be apparent is that they have spent years or a lifetime filling their pockets.
Strands of form undulating from right to left, up and down.
Futuristic forms from a medium indicative of the past.
No pretense of circular perfection.
Engage the hand and imagination of the recipient.
Encourage careful handling.
A sense of movement, balance, tension.
Inspire tactile desire.
The perfect confluence of curves.
Life-affirming curves.
Curves familiar to first-century Mediterranean carpenters.
I wanted to make it fragile.
Rather fragile.
The entrancing purity of an egg's blending of sphere and ellipse.
The beauty of the wood.
And the expanse of form and aesthetics.
The contrast of obese and thin.
Playful.
Playful.
Energetic.
And centrally focused.
Visually dynamic.
Dramatic to the eye and sensual to the touch.
Emphasizing contrast.
Black
With white.
Big with
Small. A form or texture or color that I find
irresistible.
Visual.
tactile.
Smell.
Like fine wine.
Made to whisper.
Not shout.
Then I started doodling on the outside of the form.
I dissolve the walls of the vessel.
Negative space slashed through the middle.
I have handled thousands of medieval wooden bowls.
Thicker and tactile. Celtic touch bowls.
More functional yet still sensitive.
Pick them up.
Pick them up.
Feel the marks of the tool.
Feel where the weight lies.
They carry a human touch.
Carry spirit.
I could remake the bowl
I could remake the bowl
1,000 times.
1,000 times.
1,000 times.
And still,
And still
no two
would be the same.
would be the same.
Would be the same.
And still I would be developing.
And
refining,
still, I would be developing, refining, developing, refining, developing, refining.
Responding to the challenge of this odd material.
Wood.
Firewood oak.
As long as I can remember.
Wangi and holly.
The life of a tree can be read in the trunk.
Japanese
Close to the bowl.
Rhododendron.
The walnut was saved from a pile of firewood.
Lignitized cedar.
Wood. A neighbor's wood piles. An arborist's leavings.
Shark's
A
teeth.
tree taken down in a street renovation.
Black persimmon.
Wood.
Cedar.
Roots embedded in the dark, hidden bosom of earth. The livingness and cohesiveness of wood.
Carnauba wax.
Wood.
Lacquer.
I collaborate with it.
Pink.
A relationship with a particular piece of wood. A hunk of fresh green burl.
Translucent with
Still green.
an amber
A pleasure to cut and handle.
Vibrant
Pale,
stains
even-grained
and
sycamore
markings.
to act as a
Brightly
blank
colored
canvas.
resin.
Wood.
Freshly
A
mixed
soft,
pigments,
wet,
linen
pithy
thread,
substance
and
dotted with
telegraph
long,
Wangi.
stringy fibers.
Rhododendron.
Wood.
Syrah,
Hard to tame.
Matambu.
A wood turner's nightmare.
Olive.
A piece of wood I had admired for years, but I couldn't bring myself to alter.
Lemon.
A light
Wangi,
oil finish.
And holly.
Buffed
Salted
and waxed.
hackberry.
Cast
Wood,
leaded crystal.
stained by a moldy growth. Experiments
Thread
with
and
bleaching,
telegraph wire.
dyeing,
Carnauba.
remove all its color.
Pink ivory.
Wood.
Cherokee
It accepts
red.
guidance,
green.
but resists any attempt to make it conform.
Focused on the physical effort and the love of process.
Rotational processes. Multi-axis turning. Multiple
Spindle
axis
turning.
techniques.
The more ancient form of lathe.
Classical machinist who creates his own
Tool
machine.
used years ago. Pole, lathe, axe, knife.
Turning exists at the core of my work.
Faceplate turning is akin to thrown pot.
Variation in texture and form which
One
I
way,
desire.
general, Holtzapfel, Armbruster Rose Engine. lathe.
Origins traced to ancient
I
Mesopotamia.
use no measuring tools. I turn and carve them by
Treat the
eye.
lathe as a carving tool, removing the recognizable relationship of the sculptures. to the
Sandblasting and bead blasting, engraving,
Scorched and rough.
texturing.
Wire brushing, subtle scoring.
One
and
section masked, steamed and bent off the lathe's augmentation.
Possibilities revealed through process.
From galaxies to spiraling hawks to DNA.
The smooth lines of a full sail, the force that moves the vessel forward.
I was drawn to the river, the power, vitality, and endurance of the river. Living near a tidal marsh, striations, movement, patterns, a seed pod,
A seed pod bursting open.
tortoise carapace, radiolarian, exoskeleton enclosing a delicate interior, sand dollars and sea biscuits.
Bird of paradise. Avian forms. An amalgamation of different creatures.
Homage rocks and cairns from Everest. Stones in their strong, solid shapes. Geological strata expose the layers within. Provoke a power which might be called the providence of nature.
The shape of the log, the grain pattern, cracks, faults, or rotten spots all play a part. Learning to look at small details, just at details.
Lighting patterns in a New Jersey convention hall.
Egyptian and Mayan pyramids, a modern functioning office building.
Pierced marble screens of the mosques.
Domes with their concavity
And their axial symmetry.
The gem figures of the West Royal Portal of Chartres Cathedral.
My lifelong preoccupation with towers.
Architrave, awning, clear story.
A minimal intrusion of structure.
A non-supporting exoskeleton.
The idea of structure and enclosure.
A more complex helix form.
Graceful tapers and linear frame construction.
To refine the form by freeing it
From the constraints of
The
function.
large scale allows the viewer to enter that place and explore.
A maze of sinus-like cavities.
Its appearance changes greatly as you walk by.
Viewers are challenged to look through and around.
To experience the interplay between the inner and outer surfaces.
The eye is drawn to its voids.
Cutting through the walls to discover fresh visual material.
The windows are entrance to another world.
There is a power in the sheer number
And repetitions of one form against another.
Produce objects in multiples like the potter's wheel and weaver's loom.
The everyday vessels of industrial culture.
The everyday vessels of industrial culture.
The bottle.
The jar.
The jar.
The can.
Plates and platters serve as
The
canvas.
relationship of classical shapes used in industrial
This
contexts.
general sense of a bottle is intended to be a contradiction within
An
itself.
interpretation of an everyday throwaway object.
Made of a highly figured piece of curly
A
maple.
wood bowl can be so much more than it
learning to
appears.
look at small details.
Just at details.
Details. Many hours of contemplating
This
during
quiet
the
time
day.
allows my mind
to wander.
A drawing made during a long, boring phone
Computer modeling.
conversation.
Wireframe
A
depiction.
fiber optics system.
I'm not interested in making hard
I'm not interested in
mathematically
making
generated
sine wave
models.
tape
Fragmentals.
A new configuration.
Six scallops,
Fibonacci
three
numbers or
scallops
golden
on the same.
rules.
Scribed or milled.
Decaying. Mathematical
Simply an
functions.
exploration of
spiraling
making
surfaces.
lines or
Simply
The
an
tools.
crossover
exploration
was
of
given a
making lines
Mobius
or
The
twist.
crossover was given a
then
Legs
Mobius
form
twist.
two
transposed
flat
onto
planes.
Transpose. What would happen if the
Along
base
What would happen if
dominated?
the
Enormous
base
There was only a
dominated?
teeny
A
bowl.
And there was only a
meandering
teeny bowl.
convoluted
A meandering
I need to
convoluted
explore.
I need to explore
possibility.
form. It is
Lines
difficult
of
escape from
quality,
references.
It is difficult to
color,
escape.
Form
No
and
escape.
color.
Production work.
Not me, not me, not me, not me, not me.
To make tables or overturn them. An element of surprise.
Is deceptively simple.
Simple white forms.
Their shadows.
Their details.
Their differences.
Simple.
Open shapes still appeal.
A simple base form and the air or space.
Negative spaces.
Represent the unseen weight of the unknown.
Tabletop is the ground.
A ridiculously exaggerated protrusion.
A
A
fantasy.
A sphere in the grips of a
A
clamp.
dragon's claw grasping a pearl.
A progression of profiles.
Negative portraiture.
Hybrid profiles.
Janus faced.
Portrait.
Caricature.
Silhouette.
Not a replica or a counterfeit.
Complexity and confusion.
Arranged into a purposeful construction. No more than a tree can change its location, can we change our past.
The South Pacific where I live.
I was raised in the Midwest.
The Kansas farm where I grew up.
Helped my granddad repair bamboo fly rods.
My father's furniture factory.
His brother gave him an unneeded lathe.
Family is a grouping of objects, an inseparable bond that encompasses all.
Broken hearts, tears, and feelings of rootlessness.
The death of friends and family. Personal tragedy. I have persevered because my father said I couldn't.
The sonogram, the strong urge to cradle and protect my child, his adventures of independence.
An homage, a gift that I treasure. An exceptional gift.
Respectfulness, deep respect, in collaboration.
Working collaboratively. The camaraderie, the shared struggles.
I am mindful of the obligation. I am a lucky woman.
I started my life all over again. The wood-turning movement itself.
My descent into wood turning coincided with the purchase of a book.
The rhythm and narrative. A dialogue between disclosure and enclosure.
Previously unused voices speak a language that all can understand. The wood has a voice, and I have a voice. We interact like jazz musicians.
Hear the differences in resonance as they touch the table.
The rhythms, contrast, and repeating patterns often suggest visual equivalence.
That's how I feel when I
A
dance.
foot reaching for its next step, grounded while experiencing the earth.
A point of perfect balance and spin, the relationship of art to walking.
The illusion of motion, the amplification of motion.
Motion and suspension implied motion.
Apparent movement noted on a non-moving object.
Walking,
Stepping, sprinting,
jumping,
Or rest within.
or encroach upon, or embrace.
Making a circular trip through space and time.
Fragments of a forgotten civilization.
Sitting on dusty museum shelves.
In the basement of the Smithsonian.
Animals in cave paintings chased by running figures arc across the interior space.
An archaeological dig. Ancient stone tablets. A monumental stele from Elam.
From a playing card made in 1460.
Richly decorated, engraved. Patterns from workshops years ago.
The furrows dressed into the face of the millstone.
Jade.
The Maori symbol for eternity.
Kimonos as a continuous landscape. The seasons changed from one to the next.
I was amazed to discover that Chinese potters had been imitating me for thousands of years.
No essential difference exists between the artist and the craftsman of heightened awareness.
We're all
Swimming around.
In the same ocean,
Or drift.
In the maelstrom
The anchor chain.
has been cut.
and one drifts
these rare and rich materials
Could have been formed
into 100 different statements.
in the hands and minds
of 100 different makers,
I may be wondering
About their source.
as much as you are.
Happenstance.
standing stones,
the balance of objects
Is everything.
experimenting.
to transform the wood itself.
Perfection can be impossible to improve upon.
That elusive element is lost.
Life defies definition.
One man's horror.
Is another one's delight.
Transcending the round object
The stiffness.
of wooden objects.
Closed compositions.
Letting the wood
Find its own shape.
Hinting at possible use.
Using more of the
whole.
To marry.
The elements
A form.
with the raw beauty of the medium.
To mind the
potential
In juxtaposition of wood.
and metal.
To find a different treatment.
Relinquish control.
Challenge of
Unpredictability.
Which
pattern,
Would emerge.
The relationship between materials.
And processes.
the distant,
A distinct reflection of what originally inspired me to wood turning.
an approximation of the perfect star bowl.
that lives in my mind.
as it lived in the mind.
of the Turner of the original,
550 years ago.
This process yields the expression I sought.
Respect.
the talent,
that I have.
Respect.
the talent,
A mythical beast.
My own mythical organisms.
Eventually developing,
Itself.
I look to the center of the work.
Where there exists something elusive, yet
Captivating.
Burned into my subconscious.
I had forgotten about it totally.
It was in
the memory vault.
Below conscious level.
Something magical had occurred.
A living entity that also touched the heart.
A transformation of complexity.
transforming.
Rough timber.
Transforming.
Into a kind of poetry.
It's simple yet complex.
Pure elegance and closure.
Ceremony or offering.
Self-rewarding.
The unanticipated change that occurred,
A little fantastic.
a little odd.
More life.
difficult to predict, highly unlikely.
With a life of their own.
To cause a moment of confusion, followed by a quick assessment, then
Everything fell into place.
What may have been the catalyst,
Everything from mystery unraveling.
Or deepening.
The innocent pleasure of a toy.
and memories of things seen,
That feeling of not needing
to improve on nature.
healing,
Healing.
And finally dismissal.
I don't think about the work much after it's finished.
I am
involved with the next piece.
And I can't wait to see what comes next.
The moment when a piece seems simultaneously to be coming together and coming apart.
A moment of both sweet possibilities.
And grave self-doubts.
Sweet possibilities.
And grave self-doubts.
Sweet possibilities.
Sweet possibilities.
Sweet possibilities. Sweet
Possibilities. Possibilities.
Possibilities.
sweet
Possibilities. Possibilities.
Possibilities.
sweet
Possibilities. Possibilities.
Possibilities.